G'day guys, this is CW from the land down under, joining you for another weekly developer update. And joining here again is Armeanio. How are you, mate?
I'm doing pretty well.
That's good to know. It's a little bit happening in the industry of late. Probably most notably is the bill put forward by Senator Loomis. Are you able to shed a little light on that for us?
Sure. Well, the first thing users need to know is that it's an initial draft, right? So it came out, everybody read it, and it's not wise to make the assumption that that's anywhere close to what its final form may be. It has to go through, I think, 4 different subcommittees, and then pass the last minute thing where there tends to be a thick bill and a stack of papers gets put on the bottom, and then people vote for it and then figure out what the hell they just added. So let's see. It's always a mixed bag when it comes to legislation, right? In terms of business, it's good to have clarity, right? Yep. You have people that may be willing to come into the space, but it's foggy, and it's foggy globally. Then we also have to ask the question, okay, well, do the people that are actually voting for this have sufficient knowledge to where they are decent stewards for the industry? My take would be definitely not, right? No,
yeah, there's a lot of work to go there.
Yeah, generally not. That's generally not something that they're proficient or even understand. Then you also have the lobbying aspects where, blue team will try to pass a law that helps blue team, and red team will have to, basically follow the same playbook for a different end. And so you have a lot of, money lobbyist actors that all have their own agenda. In terms of consumer protection, that's hard to do in any business, to be honest. I think that there's definitely some benefit to having, clear guardrails. In terms of, being anonymous on the internet and contributing, good luck stopping that. You run into this a lot in our industry, where governments try to, they say, okay, well, we're going to allow you to use electricity for your hot tub or your arc welder. But if it comes to the custom computer you built in your house, that's bad, right? And, good luck enforcing a lot of these things.
That's the beauty of the accessibility for mining Ergo, is it's all consumer grade GPUs. So one thing I'd like to know is how they're going to sort of differentiate someone gaming or mining on a single GPU at their home. And then in regards to the lobbyist side of things as well, I think as an industry, everyone has to come together and fight this on a unified front. I've just been reading sort of some comments through Twitter, and the maximalists from side A are attacking side B and vice versa, and it's not going to achieve anything, I don't think.
Yeah, welcome to planet Earth, first day. There's always that kind of infighting and political nonsense, and the reality is, it probably doesn't do that much for our industry. It probably doesn't do that much for humanity, other than impede progress and create kind of a playing board that's tilted in one direction.
Yeah,
it is what it is. I can't say that that's going to change. I would love to say we need to come together and sing Kumbaya, but the reality is human nature is human nature, and technology doesn't necessarily change that. So it's one of those things. Let's see what happens after it goes through multiple iterations and drafts. Let's see what happens in the EU as they progress on their side, and then let's see if they can enforce compliance.
Yeah, well,
not my job, not my problem, is how I'm going to look at it.
Yeah, we know from the EU side of things, trying to stop self custody of coins or wallets. How do you enforce that? It's just silly, in my opinion.
Well, most of these people, were kind of in their late to let's just say late middle age to early old age before the internet technology took off.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's not something that I would necessarily say they're good custodians or guardians for the future of humanity when it comes to technology anyway.
Exactly right. Well, on that segue, let's jump into the developer update.
Sure.
And to kick things off, we've got an update here from Mr. Starfelger. So he put one through a little bit earlier, just in regards to his wallet app. So 1.10, it's got a staged rollout for everyone. And then his Mosaic plugin systems is integrated the wallet app. That's done through on the feature branch, and then just going through a couple of iterations for the DApp interface. So if you wanted to check that out, just follow through on those repo links that he's got there. And then also on the Token J, his app that he's put together, he's got an escrow service now live, so a person-to-person token sale. It just takes out that middle person and not having to trust someone, so it's all on chain. It's a nice little addition.
P2P stuff is amazing,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just locked up in a smart contract, and once those conditions are met, it just distributes everything accordingly. So moving on, we've got a quite large update here from Louis Varcha. Do you like to take that one?
Sure. Looks like the Paideia, I think I said that right, setup is live. That's one of the tokens that launched through ErgoPad and is offering DAO tooling for users and projects to basically have governance and tokenomics and all kinds of stuff that are useful. I like to think of it as like a WordPress type layout for a DAO. You can plug and play. Looks like they're using proxy contracts for staking and unstaking, which results in a much smoother experience. I haven't played with that at all, so I don't know, but I trust him. Looks like he's working out Paideia's backend, dropped a high-level overview on GitHub. And looks like the plan is to have fees for the platform paid in Paideia based on the SigUSD value, ensuring that fees are unaffected by market fluctuation. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cost predictability is definitely something that always is going to be an important part of any business.
Yep.
Looks like there's also a side project working on NFT sales contract with a random feature. That's something that a lot of users want. And that's always an interesting engineering question when it comes to NFT drops. Like, are they being distributed? Is there, some guy that's saying, we had an input and so, here's an output? That's hard to say whether that's fair, and I don't think a lot of users really ask that question, but who knows what's going on behind the curtain, right? Is it just one guy with levers, or is it a smart contract? Or if it is a smart contract, what's the mechanism of, kind of distribution? Because if you did know that beforehand, you could say, okay, well, the rares drop at the end, so let's, wait until it's almost closed. Having a random feature there is really huge in terms of creating open and fair assumptions.
Yeah, I was just about to touch on that. Some of the price tags of NFTs can skyrocket, so having that fair distribution and the clarity around that, the transparency around that'd be great for the community.
Yeah, it really would be. Looks like Noob has been working on an interesting solution, allowing them to push changes on the blockchain directly without putting too much strain on the Explorer node. So that's great to see. That's something that is still kind of a weakness. It is being improved upon, but every once in a while the Explorer still, is kind of our single bottleneck that we need to give love to.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. We actually have a pretty solid roadmap with that.
Yeah. So thank you for talking about that one. I'll just let you have Paideia, so then I didn't have to try and say it a couple of times.
It's a good choice.
So moving on, we've got a new project, SpookyErgo. So they're a NFT project, I believe. So they're putting together a 3D style Pac-Man game. So that'd be pretty fun. They've almost got the UI ready for public testing, just working on the leaderboard. And then it will be out for public testing. So after that, they will use the Ergo DApp and Ergo Auth. So then holders, can connect and play the game. So they're likely to put a free version out without any awards for everyone just to be able to play. So that's a nice little addition to the community.
Yeah, it's a nice way to do like a test net for a game.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got Jozanek. I'm sure I've messed that pronunciation up again. Working on Sigma, so the next steps. He's got he's going to finalize the max tree depth for the serializers, and then just got ongoing work on Pretty Printer for Ergo tree. Is that just a visualization for the Ergo tree, or?
I believe so. I believe so.
And moving on, we've got Scala Hub. Take Scala, please.
Sure. So they're working on an EIP number 33, which has to do with token burning. He's asked for feedback. That's something I'm actually going to get feedback on. I haven't yet, but I plan on doing that. Sometimes, it basically is a decision that we need to make in terms of storage rent. Sometimes storage rent has the potential to get messy when you're potentially burning boxes that are acting as contracts. And so we need to essentially create ways to assure that we don't accidentally, burn part of a contract and leave something open, or create vulnerabilities. Storage rent is really a new concept, so we do need to kind of be wise in terms of what we're going to prune from the chain, and what we're going to redistribute and how. And as that approaches, it's certainly something that is going to get a lot more attention from the core team.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because ultimately, any box can be burnt, I guess. So we just have to put some guidelines around which ones they can burn and which ones they need to leave alone. Interesting concept for miners as well, is to be able to claim NFTs and other such things.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how it plays out. Not only is storage rent kind of novel, but it's also adjustable. And it does have the ability to potentially build new, essentially completely new lines of revenue for miners and mining pools. And it kind of puts them in really a unique position in terms of the ability to build assets and participate in DeFi, and to kind of take their rightful role as custodians of an ecosystem. So I'm very curious to see how that pans out. I will be giving feedback in that particular Git probably tomorrow.
Yep. It's we're not too far away from implementation actually of storage rent as well.
No, we're really not. And people hear that, and they think of like a tax, right? And to some degree, the storage space of a blockchain is a scarce commodity, right? If you want to have a distributed network that the average user can participate in, kind of mining and running a full node mining on top of it, we have to be cognizant of size, right? If you get into the 3 terabyte, 4 terabyte, range, that's a heavy lift for some people. So I think long term, not only is it wise in terms of creating a network that the average person can truly host, but also having additional economic incentives to where proof of work becomes more sustainable over time.
Yeah, and one thing also is just reduces the bloat as well from UTX sets, UTXO sets, and dust. We know on the Bitcoin, thousands and thousands, if not millions, maybe of Bitcoin have been lost to dust.
Yeah, in terms of their economic value, there's a lot sitting there that's just unusable.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you can't ask openly about, Bitcoin, about the long-term security incentive. If you do, you're going to start a fight every time. So it's something that I'm going to say is not my problem. And once it becomes popular with them, hopefully we already have a solution in place.
Yeah, we're positioned well.
So let's see. Next, he's added a few types of Ergo JDE. Looks like they've also been working on the USD equivalent for non-Ergo balance and the Ergo wallet, the rate obtained from an Oracle. Also serves as an example of using JDE to get the Oracle rate. So,
yeah, the oracles are interesting. We've touched on this a couple of times as well, sorting out the economic incentive to be able to spin those up. It will be a great little addition to see our community sort of built on that. There'll be multiple projects and things pushing their marketing, I guess, in regards to trying to get people to utilize their data.
sure, I've already got a couple of people or projects that are interested in the Ergo oracles. It's just a matter of getting the framework polished, and that's a work in progress, which transitions nice to Green Hat, which is the next update. So it looks like Tim L's working on the NepoPal aspect of Ergo, our implementation. So he's adding some additional parts for a sample SPV client, the workflow of it. Looks like he's also working on the libraries and backends. So we'll see how that comes about. Looks like he also was hunting a bug in Chrome for peer discovery. So happy hunting there. Then Green Hat himself is still working on the Oracle framework. I know that he's kind of working on changing the boxes to V2 as he's working with the implementation. So he's kind of back and forth and testing it. Last I heard, he thinks we're probably 2 weeks to a month out. But yeah, we do actually have interest already starting to form around the concept of hardened Oracle data. Within the EEF, that's not something that I want to spin up and try to be an Oracle provider, but I'm always happy to talk to projects and then hand them to community operators and say, okay, well, if you guys want to do business, let's kick that off together.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see the SPV stuff come together as well. Having that example, I haven't looked into it. People to be able to utilize the SPV side of things with NipoPals.
Yeah, it's going to be a big efficiency gain. There really is no magic in NipoPals. It's a compression technique. So whenever you read that word, if you're an average user and you're saying, okay, well, how do I make this English? All it does is it minimizes the computational resources that something requires without compromising security. So
very well said. And plus, it's fun to say the word.
NipoPal, yeah.
So moving on, he's just got all his repos linked here. So is this a new developer? Is this Cepha?
Yeah, Zephyr works with Nemo.
All right. So just working on the Ergo GraphQL. So I've got the GraphQL query complexity limit by depth, limit mechanism sorted, complete mempool resolvers, and then added epoch resolvers as well. So welcome to the community, mate. Now moving on, we've got Dimitri. He's released a new version of Sigmaverse, so head over there and check that out. Then just fixed up a couple of issues after that was released. So thank you very much. It's a really good resource for the community. And Prag Maxime.
Sure, Prag Maxine's always on the node. What's he up to today? It looks like he's working on 4 issues on the node. Yeah.
Got avoiding wallet rescan, testing the fork switcher synchronizer, optimizing the peer info serializer, and then adding the max inclusion height to that API. Moving on, we've got Crass. So he has worked on the sale processor for Ergo's upcoming 3D NFT launch. Then also has a pull request to add 3D modules to the asset standard. So another sort of influx, I think, maybe from the Comet side of things. We'll see how that goes.
It's amazing. You know, when they started out and they're like, oh, we're going to build on Ergo, I said, yeah, okay. You're going to build on Ergo. And now look at them. I have to eat my words there. I'll do it.
I remember those couple of conversations about having to have the lock contract and everything like that. So you held them to pretty high standard.
We're gonna have a locked contract for people, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's see it. I'm not gonna talk about that in front of people if there's nothing to see.
Yeah.
Looks like they really have lived up to it. First mineable meme coin on Ergo. Respect.
Yeah, just about to expand on that as well. They've got their subpool live now on GetBlock.io. So if you want to dual mine Erg and Comet tokens, I think they're up to around, I think it was 3.5 million Comet tokens they've released so far. So they're starting to hit plenty of blocks, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how that can be used as a vector to launch projects in the future. Subpooling really is somewhat game changing in terms of giving miners the ability to it's almost like mining and DeFi at the same time in a way, based on like the traditional mining method where you would have to mine and then swap an asset. So it's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, and we've sort of touched on this as well in the latest Dark Cave miners that we hosted not long ago, or a couple of days ago, sorry. And it's the incentive around actual pool hosts or people who spin up the sub pools, and they're marketing around trying to attract hash rate. So I can kind of see it happening in regards to how sort of stake pools advertise to try and receive delegates on Cardano.
Sure. And, we really need to watch how various, we were talking about the whole Loomis situation earlier when we started. Depending on how legislation goes, there may be an advantage to launching via work. Yeah. We'll have to really watch how things progress, not just in the US, but in the EU as well. But having that vector to where, someone can say, hey, we were fair launched, to miners, and there's also the potential to have, some sort of smart contract mechanism that does go to the team, which means the team is receiving assets at the same time as the miners, so there's no pre-miner ability to kind of dump on markets. It may actually end up being a very valuable tool in terms of bringing projects to market in a way that gives coverage. We'll have to see how things progress.
Yeah, another one for the watch this space.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have Morphic and his Sigma updates. Would you like to take that?
Sure. Looks like there's a new published version of Scala. He's been working on updating that. Looks like he's created a new or published a new update in terms of the Scala update that he's been working on. Also looks like he's been reviewing multiple 5.0 candidates and working on PRs towards 5.0.1. So hopefully we get some more testing and information as we approach that vote that's going to be coming up in terms of adding that support. Looks like he's also reviewed multiple things across the ecosystem, wallet updates, various PRs, and he's digging into Ergo hack, which is kind of the sleeper so far of the weekly update. You know, having 17 projects dropped on a developer's desktop and saying, "Hey, read through these and tell us what you think," you know, is a little bit of a lift. So please have some patience with them. I know they're working on it. Yeah. Next up, he's going to finish that stack of Ergo hack reviews and test the full node sync, and hopefully, you know, play around with the network and give us some metrics in terms of how things are coming through.
Yeah, just on this as well, received a question from a community member actually in regards to what actually is Sigma when we put in a heading like Morphic has done here in regards to, say, like Sigma Rust and then the ScoreX side of things. Can you give us a little update on that?
Sure. So it kind of goes back to the founding parts of Ergo. So Ergo was born from ScoreX, which is a modular testing tool that Alex built and was playing with when he came up with the initial parameters for Ergo. So the Ergo team still supports ScoreX, still does testing on, you know, with that framework, and uses that as a way to kind of sandbox test the network before anything goes and is pushed out live. So you'll usually have changes on ScoreX, and then it will migrate over to updates on Ergo, depending on how testing goes and, you know, what comes up and what issues are there. So that's kind of our tooling or development path that you'll continuously see Morphic working on.
Cheers. Thanks very much for that.
Sure.
Moving on, we've got our Captain Nemo. He has, just in regards to Ergo GraphQL, still working on the SQL query optimizations and the API stabilization. Reviewed the PRs from Cepher, as we touched on earlier, and working on a generic query optimization layer, which will split and chain queries to solve inefficient queries. Is that one of the examples we saw on Twitter?
Yeah, it basically, I believe it's one of them. Chain queries is, you know, basically a way to say, okay, it's going to call the blockchain with certain information, and as soon as it hangs up, it's going to make another call. I believe what he had posted on Twitter was more basically looking at how things were optimized once information was loaded into GraphQL, which, you know, had pretty quick speeds, but Nemo tends to be pretty good at packaging things so they operate efficiently.
Yeah, I can think a really good example of that is when you actually sync your wallet the first time. It used to take quite a long time using various other wallets, and this is near instant.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got one of our Ergo hack participants, Liquid Phase, with their Swamp Audio. So they've continuing to work on their front end. They've signed a deal with a digital streaming platform to remove their catalog off their old distributor. So that's pretty big. and drew out global scaling plans. Quite a number of users on the system. So they're thinking about getting pretty big and developing and offering a service to many.
That's great to hear.
Yep. Just a nice little welcome here from Anun BR to Cepha. And on to Kushti. Would you like to take Kushti?
Sure. So he's been reviewing and testing the EIP27 implementation, transactions on the testnet. He's basically, double, triple checking his work in terms of the latest upgrade that was passed. So it looks like there's been some disagreement on testnet that he's been playing with, trying to patch. The reemission box is something he's merged into mainnet, and he's preparing the next 2 node releases, which means he's going through the PRs, testing them on testnet, making sure that everything's operating as it should be. Looks like the mainnet activation will also contain some changes. It looks like 4.0.33 will include more radical changes. Then it'll be released after EIP27. Looks like there was an increased number of orphans yesterday, so he's been digging into why that was. I heard there was actually a couple solo miners that thought they hit a block and then got orphaned, which is always painful to see.
Yeah.
Especially when they think they have a payout coming and then sorry. I think anybody that's ever been mining and hit an orphan is knows the pain of
it's there 1 second and gone the next.
Yeah, it sucks. There's no other way to put it. If you hit a block that then kind of got orphaned, sorry for that. Hopefully we can clean up the network to where there's not as many orphans coming out. So he's gonna look into that, and hopefully we'll get some improvements in the P2P layer, and we'll get less orphans. That's always going to be something that happens from time to time in proof of work, but being that there was a uncommon amount of orphans showing up, that's never fun. So then also he's been working on Dexy. So he's got paper more or less okay in draft now, which more or less in Alex language actually is a good thing. That's a good sign. He tends to be pretty conservative. And so it looks like he's going to pass it to Scala Hub to update some of the contracts. I know that some developers are interested in supporting Dexy. So I do believe he may have already passed that to Nemo. I'm looking forward to reviewing it. I also will add a update for him because I know he's didn't add it here, and that's we've kind of been playing around with the know your assumptions paper, let's call it, where we try to educate users as to the assumptions that they need to take into account when using these types of systems. So that's something that's also in progress.
I think that's a big one, especially in once DeFi does really kick off, and it goes across the board as well, is because you're ultimately responsible for anything that you enter and the conditions around that. So you just have to know the safety assumptions, the economic side of things. There's a lot to sort of keep in mind in regards to playing with DeFi or anything in the space. So it'd be great to have that published and out to the community as well.
I think it's one of the best things that the core team can do to protect users is to educate them in terms of the assumptions that they should know, which ultimately leads them to understand the questions they should ask new projects, right? There, unfortunately, in this space, it can be some pretty shady shit. Don't know what else to call it. Sometimes I think that there are things that are not necessarily shady, they're just reckless, right? I'm trying to create things that just are, they're reckless. I don't know what else to call it. So a lot of the times, if you understand the assumptions of things and you take time to dig into them, you can avoid pain. And so, creating a network that's open and anybody can come and build on it, we do need to balance that with at least giving our perspective as the Ergo Foundation in terms of what assumptions, should look like and what questions users should ask.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that one come out. So moving on, just a comment from Nemo. Just can't wait to have that paper, just like you said, and everyone else around that. Cheese enthusiast, correct, with the get block update. So in regards to subpooling, they're testing out exchange-based emission contracts for the upcoming Aneta BTC launch, verifying the swap amount, the way it's calculated in the emission contract, making sure it matches the price on Ergo DEX, and then trying to do some robust testing in regards to how data inputs work in certain situations. On to the UI for GetBlock. So just adding a couple of tooltips around the place to make things a little bit clearer and fixed up a couple of bugs. And a big one, plasma scaling. So he's got a huge refactoring of code, added the first abstraction class, and going to be testing out that to see how it works with different contracts. Looks like you'll have a beta release in around 1 or 2 weeks. So the initial goal is just to have an easy tool for developers to implement AVL trees in their code, as well as providing local storage solutions besides level database. And then hoping to start experimenting with forking off the reference client and using this library to store both the UTXO set and the core data, so history of peers and wallets, etc. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And we've said it a couple of times as well in regards in previous episodes of the developer update, the first scaling solutions coming from a mining pool, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, mining pools are something that personally I've always seen as generally a stale area in the space where, they'll okay, running a mining pool does take a lot of work, right? I can't just give them crap without really acknowledging that it does take quite a bit of work to keep everything updated and live and up. And, a lot of the times that is a 24-hour job for somebody. But, in terms of actually building on a network and contributing and adding value into things that their businesses are based on, I have my critiques, right? But yeah, I think GitBlock has really done an amazing job at pulling them in. You actually had GitBlock on your show that you started, Dark Cave Miners, did you not?
Yeah, they join. I had Cheese Enthusiast on this week actually, and he touched a little on plasma and gave us a sort of the ELI 5, explain like I'm 5 explanation. So if you want to check out onto my personal channel and watch that one, he has a nice little explanation. Sorry.
Awesome.
Yep. So moving on. Cheese Enthusiast just has. Oh, sorry. Kushti asked if has any examples, any documentation, for plasma, and if he can share it. So he's got a lot of the documentation done on his repo, so you can jump in there, and then the contracts are also visible. So by all means, jump on there and read about everything, both the contracts and the README. Moving on, we have MG Pi with Ergo Sapiens. You want to take that?
Sure. Looks like they've updated their database processing to verify transactions faster. They've added chain transaction support, which allows tokens to be sent continuously regardless of the block height. So they'll just chain to where the output becomes the input for the next one. Looks like the scanning mechanism is more efficient as it rescans every other block. So, their database is going to stay more up to date. They've got error handling and logging complete. They're polishing their Discord notifications. Looks like they're also stress testing through incoming chain transactions. With Ergo Pi, they've added the same chain transaction support. They've added several new examples for chain sending, chain token sending, and chain bulk minting, which I believe there was an update that we saw this week on the socials in terms of chain minting of NFTs that really looked quite impressive.
Yeah,
do you have
I think
anything to add to
it was
that?
up to around 1,000 NFTs or something that were chained.
Yeah, that's amazing. Looks like, they've been testing and building, and they have a bulk minting example there for testnet for everybody to take a look at if that's in their area. Great to see.
Yeah, and just in regards, like you just touched on the chained transaction, it's just taking the output from one transaction and using that in an input for the next. That's quite a simple term. Moving on, we've got Haley PDLL and their Safe Wallet update. 0.6.4 is currently waiting for publication with bug fixes. Then integration with the Ergo dApp connector, the React component that Night Owl have put together, and ErgoDex should come soon. So you'll be able to use your Safe Wallet on ErgoDex.
That's great.
And moving on, we've got Ilya and DAppStep. So the Ergo script.js is released. Doesn't support all of the Ergo script syntax as of yet, but you can do most common things. And anyone who wants to use it, just send them or him a DM with any questions. So the nice little visualization tool here as well.
I think that especially not only new developers, but once we have the next round of deco, having students that are playing around with building with Ergo script, that's going to be invaluable. Huge.
Yeah. Like for myself, I kind of try and visualize a transaction like that, but in my mind when you're trying to scroll through the Explorer and things, but having that there or a tool to be able to do that automatically, it's a great one. And moving on, we've got the ErgoDex Ilya. So would you like to take the ErgoDex Ilya?
So it looks like they've onboarded a new dev to support the Explorer. And the design service is pretty straightforward. So we've got a path there to that version of the Explorer being upgraded. We also have GraphQL. As I was saying earlier, that bottleneck is being addressed. And, I think at some point in short term will just be history. It looks like the Explorer, he's optimizing the chain grabber. He's reviewing some PRs from Money David. And then beyond working on that Explorer build, he also has decentralized exchange on Ergo, and sounds like pretty soon Cardano. I'm not exactly sure when soon is. You can bother Gaza for that. Looks like they've prepared the production implementation of stable pools. They've optimized ErgoDex analytics backend so it consumes less resources. They're preparing the implementation of the order backlog on Cardano with off-chain bots, and that will allow new client UIs to track the status of orders in real time, which will be pretty nice. That always happens in this industry, and I think really that's part of the push for so many to say I want instant finality. Is they'll start something, and then if they're not kind of in the Explorer watching it to confirm, or just don't have the knowledge, you go through like a period of anxiety. So I think having client UIs that will track the status of orders is going to be nice in terms of easing people, their anxiety in that initial phase. I don't know if you've ever felt that, CW, but
Oh, multiple times. It's once you hit that button and it kind of goes off into the ether and you're sitting there going, oh, what's going on? And then,
yeah,
you
I
get a
do.
confirmation. Yeah.
I do
And
have the history of like as soon as I hit the button, that's when we get that long block, and it's like, oh
I was
god.
just about to say that. If anyone wants a long block, tell me to put a transaction through on Ergo Dex and it's guaranteed to be 20 minutes. It's one of those strange coincidences. Yeah, it's funny as well. Ilya's working on the Explorer, but then he just has this small little side project, Ergo Dex, building a decentralized exchange on 2 different platforms, 2 different formal programming languages, and
Yeah,
then
and you've
scaling
got to
solutions.
yeah, you have to also add the fact that he's trying to build a scaling solution that's going to uniformly talk to both Ergo Dexes. So he's got a little bit on his plate.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got a non-real. So she has ERP34 out for comment and feedback. Collected a fair bit of feedback already, so that's great. ERP22 has also been updated with backward compatibility in order to fix some design flaws for the post-AOT era. And then for the new auction house, cache servers up to improve interactions with the Explorer when necessary. Has user authentication has been implemented using the user's wallets. Added a new front-end dev and the UI integration's moving much faster. So I've seen a couple of sort of previews on that. I'm really looking forward to that one. And also a Swagger page is done for the API with documentation for the UI devs to improve the communication between the teams. Moving on, we've got the Sentinent Nft. Would you like to take those guys?
So Sentinent Nft and Cardboard Games have been working together to put touches on their white paper. That's something that the community can check out. I hope they drop it on the socials so people can get eyes on it. Looks like they also are working on their pitch deck for more in-depth and expanded view of their tokenomics and the incentives of mining and game development. Looks like they've worked on their basic website and landing page, and yeah, they're building, it looks like, in TypeScript. So everybody check out their GitHub and let's see what everything looks like once they come out. Welcome to Building on Ergo. I don't think we've covered them in the weekly update yet.
No, I've seen them around the place, but yeah, first update on the developer update. So welcome, guys. Moving on, we have Keith from Exle. So is working on the back end. Had a team meeting to discuss a system architecture for generic Ergo dApp development with onboarded developers. Also onboarded Cheese Enthusiast and LGD, Luca, I believe, as back-end devs. So congratulations, guys. So Keith himself is working on the single lender token contracts. So the first draft is completed on that. Secondly, has a proxy contract service sorted, and testing of the proxy contract is initiated. So Cheese Enthusiast has created the register implementations, added pure data model implementations for boxes and various types, and then started to work on some SLT boxes. And LGD discussed API routes for implementation of the single lender loans, and started work on controllers for handling SLT and SLE API requests. So it looks like it's all guns blazing there for Ergoland, or Exle now.
Yeah, I'm going to say Ergoland for a while, unfortunately. Burned in, hard to relearn. But
yeah. And then on the front end, they just got a Porch the Mall has worked on a PR for the community DApp wallet connector, added Exle token, made it easier for to add community tokens, and then also trying to figure out a way to use a signature to make a connection between a tweet to prove that a wallet is owned by a Twitter handle. So that's an interesting little concept. So that wraps up another weekly developer update. Any final words, mate?
Yeah, it's always nice to see the community come together and show their work in an open and collaborative fashion. So those of you that were contributing to Ergo Hack, if you're interested in continuing to build on the chain, I'd love to cover you or see what you guys are doing. But when I have time, review GitHubs and try to figure out what everybody's building.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to keep on top of things, isn't it? Just the ecosystem itself is just expanding greatly.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, really. I'm becoming less and less important, which I love that.
You'll always be important.
No, come on. I think at some point, the Ergo Foundation itself, is really going to be in the background, and what the community builds and what the projects are doing. Is really going to be in the forefront of what most people track and look at. And I think the best thing we can do is try to create the right environment for open source innovation on top of Ergo. And so, seeing a variety of, new and old faces every week, dropping updates, coming together to discuss and review what they're working on is huge. So I hope that becomes kind of a habit that eventually just becomes the norm, which it seems to already be. But those of you out there that are playing with Ergo, hop on. Generally, the community does a great job of collaborating, asking questions, answering questions, and sometimes you put a puzzle in front of some people, it's hard for them to walk away without solving it.
Exactly. They'll sort of get sidetracked and go down the rabbit hole just to help you out.
Yeah, so I love seeing that.
Yeah, that's a great thing about the Ergo community, like you just touched on as well, is drop a question into the Discord or Telegram, even on Twitter. You'll have multiple responses from people in time. So thanks again for watching another weekly developer update. It's been a pleasure bringing it to you again. And thanks, Armeanio, for joining me once again. Take care, guys.
Happy to be here.
Have a good one.